Hello and welcome to 5 in the video series How to Build a Geothermal Greenhouse in Your Backyard. I'm Alex Smith, host of Radio Ecoshock at ecoshock.org. In this session I will show you both photos and videos from my home-built demonstration geothermal greenhouse in Canada. You will see how I installed my used glass windows in the walls and large plates of safety glass on the roof. Please feel free to pause the video at any time to check out the photos. I spent about a year researching everything I could find about geothermal greenhouses. I watched every YouTube video I could find. During that time, I scrounged around for my windows. I checked sites like Craigslist or Kijiji, of course. But mostly I found my glass through word of mouth or at the little signs on local supermarket bulletin boards. You should collect your glass, or at least know what you're going to buy, before planning your geothermal greenhouse. Of course, you can choose the size of your greenhouse according to your needs and the size of your property, but the number and size of your window glass will also be a factor. Some people use a lot of smaller windows, or you can use single pane windows, doubling them up by making your own frames. For example, I found some windows taken out of a trailer in aluminum frames. I could have set those frames in a groove in a 2x4 board to make double panes. In the end, I found ready-made windows, although their wood frames were chipped here and there where they had been removed from another house. Watch for people replacing their windows and maybe pick up their old ones. Most people are just glad to have the glass gone. You can move large glass windows by putting 2x4s 6 feet long across the bed of a truck. That puts the glass on an angle, which is best. Then collect some old comforters, say at a yard sale or in a used clothing shop. Save those comforters. You can use them later on the roof for the coldest winter days. For moving windows, just wrap the underside of the windows with comforters. Use more comforters as spacers if you have more than one window. Strap it all down and drive slowly on the best roads you can find. Nothing broke when I moved my windows. It's not really too hard. My roof glass is safety glass. Sometimes you can get this from local companies who make patio doors. Something doesn't work out for them. They cut the wrong size, or the glass has a tiny blemish that would bother a homeowner but doesn't really block much sun. Safety glass is best because if it breaks, it does not rain down sharp, dangerous shards into the greenhouse and maybe onto you. Instead, it breaks into beads which cannot hurt anyone. My safety glass was stored under a neighbor's porch. The previous owner of that property had these panels above their patio as a roof there. Now they were unwanted. The glass was dirty. It was at least 20 years old and had been exposed to summer sun. So I took a couple more panels than I thought I would need, in case a couple broke in handling. One did break, as two of us unloaded it because we were not paying close attention and twisted it. You can't twist those panes of glass. Bang! It was startling. It was a mess to clean up, all those glass beads, but no damage was done. Another piece of safety glass broke on my greenhouse roof during the first winter. I think in my new foundation it just moved enough, or maybe I had my support 2x4s underneath too tight. The glass shattered, and it took me part of a day to clean up the glass beads below in the greenhouse. As it was winter, I paid $60 at my local store for a 4x8 sheet of greenhouse polycarbonate plastic to cover that section of the roof. It was easy to replace. You may decide to use polycarbonate for your entire roof, and that's okay. It is a lot easier, but it can be expensive. It is also easy to see that polycarbonate does not transmit as much light as glass does down into the greenhouse. When you look out through a glass roof panel, you see everything in the sky, including birds and clouds. The polycarbonate makes it all fuzzy. That means not as much light is getting through. However, the polycarbonate does have insulating ribs of plastic that do give you a little more insulation than glass, even the thick glass that I used. The other drawback to polycarbonate, sometimes known as plexiglass or other brand names, is it deteriorates in sunlight. Most people guess the polycarbonate panels will last between 8 to 10 years before they crack and break. They will need to be replaced then, which means more work and expense. Unless I get a terrible hailstorm, the glass should last for decades. I think glass is best if you can find it. Once the framing is done, the next step is to install the eaves with aluminum flashing as seen in these photos. The flashing has to go on there before the glass because any rain or ice will slide down off the glass over the aluminum and then down to the ground. Think about how rain works. It hits the top aluminum trim over your ridge pole. From there it runs down on the glass and then onto the aluminum flashing. We have to build all that in reverse order, starting with the lowest layer. You will hear in a video the best way to lay glass on a greenhouse roof. This is a variation of the English method, the way glass greenhouses are built in England. It is not generally seen in North America. I modified it a bit for the home project using information from a local glass installer. There's a video for that. We will not use silicone to seal these windows. Silicone is cheap and available everywhere, but it has problems. Silicone goes rock hard in the weather, and we want more flexibility. Plus, if you need to replace a pane of glass, the silicone will be pressed deep into the wood, merging with it. Scraping it off will take hours, and you have to do that. Instead, we will use butyl sealant tape, B-U-T-Y-L sealant tape. Shown here is a roll of that tape. The butyl will not push into the wood as far and cradles the glass well, it ages well, and it keeps out the water or ice. As explained in the video, the only problem with butyl tape is it can flatten down a bit too much. To prevent that, I put a small piece of screen piping in between two butyl strips. You can see that as the round black material in the upper part of the photo. Screen makers use this around the screen frames. You may have to go to a screen or glass shop to find it, but it's probably on Amazon as well. It's not expensive. The butyl will not flatten totally because the screen piping holds it up a little. In this photo, you can see the preparation to lay down 2 plates of glass on the roof rafter. Each piece of glass lays on 2 lines of butyl tape with screen piping in between them. The outer final seal around the outside of the glass is white silicone caulking. Without pressure on it, the silicone will not flatten. I suspect those outer seals will have to be redone every 5 to 10 years. That's the way it goes. It does eventually wear out in the weather. Now let's talk about how the glass plates are held on. Around the top of the glass and all down the sides, I have another layer of butyl tape and then 1x3 or 1x4 wood strips screwed down with an edge over the glass. You cannot screw anything into glass. Remember too, only an expert can cut safety glass, so you need to work with what you have. So the screws go between the glass plates and the wood hangs over the glass. That is why we leave about 1 inch, 2.45 centimeters, between each glass plate where they join one another. The wood strips hold down the glass against very strong winds. We do not want another strip of wood along the bottom. That would obstruct the flow of water off the roof and collect snow and ice in the wintertime. Instead, we use specially formed aluminum clips to hold the bottom edge of the glass to the aluminum flashing. I show you the brand of clips and how to use them in a video coming up. To make sure my glass landed well on the wood strips over the rafters, I first cut a large sheet of cardboard. I put that exactly the same size as the glass and tested it out on each roof section. You will see that in a video. If you need to move a rafter or a 1x3 board, that is easy because everything is screwed together. I also built a ladder on one side to access the roof and the peak when all the glass is on. You may need this to fix any leaks or to fix a tarp that gets stuck on the roof peak or something like that. By the way, the whole design tries to keep the entire roof as smooth as possible. That way you can pull a large tarp over the whole greenhouse if needed. You might want that to create light deprivation if you are growing cannabis flowers off-season. I used a big tarp to cover the whole greenhouse during very cold weather, and that really helped. Don't leave nails or sharp things sticking up on the roof. You will see a video about the roof ladder. I cut polycarbonate for the gable end on the south end of the greenhouse to let the light in. It's above the big window there. It's easy to cut using a board for a ruler and pulling a box cutter along your several lines. The end gable was a tricky shape though, with a fan box built into it. So I made a model out of cardboard first. Once I got that cardboard to fit, cutting it and pasting it around as needed, then I put my polycarbonate over the model to get things right. That really worked. The side windows need to be set above any nuts, connecting the sill plate to the concrete foundation. I made small rails out of 1x2 wood to go under each window. You can see them at the bottom of the window in this picture. A protective covering of tar paper goes all the way around the window for moisture control. That's just the professional way to do it. You should have up to ½ inch or 1.2 centimeters of space left around the windows, around the sides and the top. This allows for little warping, sagging, or movement of the foundation without cracking the windows. Those spaces around the windows can be covered with a small board lightly screwed in and caulked with silicone. Do not make the top of the windows super tight with the beam above. We need that space for safety, as all new buildings change shape a bit. Once the tar paper is in, the windows should slide in easily. Remember, if you need to adjust one of the support beams, you still can. Everything is screwed and can be unscrewed. Then put in a few long screws through the window frame into the side beams to hold the window up. Later, Winter will show you where any cracks are that need to be stuffed with insulation or caulking. I put fiberglass insulation all around my windows on the inside. Later I put some 1x3 wood trim up over that insulation. As seen in my previous video, I built my own door. Because my greenhouse is so small, I built a fairly narrow door. It is just wide enough to get a wheelbarrow through it. Usually that's about 24 inches wide or 60 centimeters clearance inside the frame when the door is fully open. A smaller door also means less heat loss, and that's handy. The door is set about 12 inches or 30 centimeters above the outside gravel at the entranceway. That allows for some snow buildup outside, and I can still open the door. I was planning on building a kind of entry porch with a second door. That is best for super cold country, so you can open the first door without cold air blowing into the greenhouse and changing all your air. But I ran out of time, energy, and money. Instead, I made some homemade steps out of the earth to get down into the greenhouse. That has worked out fine, actually. If you have the energy to make a second door entry, that would be best. It's up to you. I have talked too much already. Let's get to the videos shot as the building went up. So what I've done here, I'm getting a little nervous. Is my glass really going to fit right and be properly supported at the edges and leave me enough room to go all the way around with some tape and sealing? And so I cut out a piece of cardboard that's the same size as the pane of glass. I've got it just tacked in with a couple of nails, and indeed everything looks good. It's going to fit fine. I'm going to have 1.5 inches all the way around to do my ceiling. I want to get my eaves done before I put the roof glass on, or before you do any kind of covering. Now you can see that I've just hung a 1x6, it's really only 5.5 inches, that's the way these things come, right off the ends of the truss, 2x6 truss pieces. I had to cut a little bit off the dangling part of those truss pieces to get it on there. And then I'm putting aluminum flashing all along this eave, and that will be underneath the glass, and that's why you have to put it on before you put the glass on. So the glass edge, the lower edge, will be on top of this flashing, so water and ice as it runs down will go down the glass and then down the flashing and then over the sides without running down the windows of the greenhouse. It keeps things dry down below. Now another advantage of doing what I've done here is that this is 1 foot wide aluminum flashing, comes standard at any supply store, and that means I don't have to do any cutting of the metal. I'm not very good at cutting metal, and it's really hard to cut metal in a straight line for 16 straight feet or however long your greenhouse is. You can buy this off the roll to the length of your greenhouse, so there's no joins, you see. It's all one piece. And by using a 1x6 above, which I needed to get my glass on anyway, and then a 1x6 all along the front there, when I bend it, the 1 foot wide piece fits perfectly to both without any cutting. The bottom of the glass will be held on by these clips, because I don't want a piece of wood down there that would stop the snow and ice or the water from flowing over. I got these through Amazon. The clips themselves were quite cheap from Ellerton Greenhouses in the UK, but the shipping was outrageous. I think it was something like $30 to ship this little package of 50 aluminum preformed clips. You could probably make your own. Maybe you can find them somewhere else. This is what they look like. They're sort of a bent clip. Now the glass will slide in here, and that will hold them on. But to attach them is not that easy. If you just stick a drill in here, then you'll find that your drill bit spins all over the place. You can't really get a grip on them. So what you have to do, or what I had to do, was either take a nail punch or just a common nail, set it here on a block of wood, and give it a good wham, so that I ended up with a starter hole for my drill. Then once you get the starter hole for your drill, this piece here has already been drilled. You can drill it, right where you want it, so that your screw is going to go down into, in my case, it's aluminum flashing down below, and then a piece of 1x6. It's just a common wood screw, but the beauty of it is with this head, it will screw down flat and won't stick up into the glass, and that of course is quite important. I don't want the glass resting on some little angular scratchy metal head. Now when you go to drill these things in place, you're going to have to hold on to them with a pair of pliers like this, because first of all they spin around and go out of your grasp even with your pre-drilled hole, but secondly they pick up the heat from the drill bit extremely quickly and burn your hand. So you'll need to hold on to them with pliers both at the time of making your initial drill and at the time of drilling your screw down. And I'll be giving you the details of how I actually use these a little bit later. Now I've said all through this project that I've been using screws because it's kind of an experimental project and I'm a beginner builder in some ways, so I thought I could always take things apart again if I needed to. And I have found 3 instances now where I'm going to have to make a couple of corrections and changes. Now one of them is I made this little box to hold the outlet fan, and I made it 12 by 12, but now checking the directions it's supposed to be 12.5 by 12.5, and it does matter because the flaps won't open if I try and squash it in. So I'm going to take that box out, but it's just screwed in. I'll take it out. It was made out of end pieces from cutting other things. I've got more of those, so I'll be able to use this wood somehow, and I'll make a better box and replace that. Another place, I won't go into the details here, but the door at the end isn't closing quite right. I need to change the way the frame hits on one side, and I can do that because it's screwed in. But the more fundamental problem that I've run into, I'm thinking about it, is this: that when I put the big panes up on top, I have to be able to climb up there and put some more sort of grouting or silicone in there around, and adjust things and then screw boards down on top of it, as I'll show you I've done on the other side. There's a couple of the boards there. I haven't screwed them up on top, but there do have to be boards up there. How am I going to get up there when there's glass on both sides? You definitely don't want to put any pressure on this glass. As I found out, if you really twist it too much, it just shatters into a million pieces. And along those lines, next time I put the two big panes on the other side, I'm definitely going to put down a tarp along the gravel down here. In case a piece breaks, I don't want to be cleaning out little pieces of glass for the rest of my life, and I think that that will avoid that. So to get up there, I thought about, well, maybe I can lean this long ladder up there and support it in some way and have the top of the ladder reach the ridge pole. But it takes a lot of space to reach down there. The ridge pole is not that significant that I can reach it. I don't have any confidence in this ladder scheme. So I have to think of something else to be able to get up on the roof to finish off the other half. Because the first half, I just climbed through the rafters. That was no problem. But once there's glass there, I can't do that. So here's my plan. I have to make a slight change to do it. Here I have the double trusses. There's 2x6s under there and 1x4s on top. What I'm going to do is put up a 2x4 right here and solidly bolt that down to the actual rafters, and it'll go right to the top. And then I'll put a couple of cross pieces on it, so that will be my ladder, just a little foot grip to get up to the top whenever I need to get there for the construction, or if I have to change a piece of glass or there's a leak or something has to be done up there. I'll have a permanent ladder on this side built on a 2x4. Now that means that my glass will be moving over about 4 or 5 inches from where I originally intended to have it, and it won't land properly on this rafter. So it will, though, if I replace that 1x4 with a 1x6 and move it over a little bit on the truss that it's sitting on. So that's what I'm going to do, and it won't be a big deal because that little piece of wood is just screwed in there. I'll take out the 4 screws, cut a 1x6 to fit, put it in there, and so the glass on this side will come down a little further than the glass on the other. Yesterday my neighbor Leo came over and helped me slide this last window in, and it fit in pretty tightly. I haven't trimmed the tar paper around it yet or anything. That's it. We just slid it in. I haven't even leveled it or put the screws in to get it exactly where I want it, and there will still be some caulking and things have to go around it. And you can see above I've got that one piece of corrugated plastic up there, supposedly with its 10-year UV warranty, and that's where my other gable is. I haven't cut out the hole yet where my fan will go. I'll do that in the spring. I don't need the holes right now. It did rain last night, fairly heavily. First rain we've had, well, first serious rain we've had in about 2.5 months, and no leaks in the greenhouse. So at least for rain, my roof protection system is working. There's always the challenge of ice, and it tends to back up into crannies and expand things and move things around, so I'll have to keep my eye out. There may be some place needs to be caulked, but in general, it's dry in my little greenhouse, so that's a win. I'm Alex Smith, host of Radio Ecoshock, as broadcast on 100 radio stations in the United States, Canada, the UK, and Australia. Thank you for listening, and thank you for caring about our world.